So you want me to set it up?
This particular article, you kind of have to take it with a little bit of grain of salt because this is CNBC, and we have to remember that NBC is going to be a big player in the streaming wars. Peacock is coming out in a couple months. I think they're doing their like quote unquote like soft launch in April, which is basically just for Comcast subscribers, and then it'll be available, I think, to the general public in July, I want to say. So anything that comes out of NBC at this point, you always have to take with a grain of salt because they are going to be a competitor in the streaming wars. They're going to be a big competitor in the streaming wars. So this article from CNBC says Netflix is feeling the pressure of the streaming wars. So here are the key points. Netflix Q4 2019 showed slowing domestic subscriber growth and weak guidance for the current quarter. In other words, they're not growing at the rate they were before. The pressure of new competition in streaming is weighing on Netflix, and the company responded with a mix of fuzzy metrics and optimism that it can stick with its strategy of investing heavily in content to grow its subscriber base. Netflix investors weren't convinced on Wednesday, and the stock was down about 2%. So there is some, I guess, a little bit of troubling news for Netflix. Now, Heather, we always cover the streaming wars on our program. I'm not sure how into it you are, but we've kind of done some reporting in the past about how Netflix is getting into a really bad debt situation because they are because they're both acquiring and they're creating so much content, which they have to pay for that. They have to pay the licensing, they have to pay for production costs, and they're going into debt. But at the same time, Netflix is by far the biggest player in the streaming wars right now. They have more subscriptions by far than any other streaming service. So they have a huge advantage in that regard. So anyway, basically this article is just kind of showing a little bit of a warning sign for Netflix that it may have some problems down the road and that their growth appears to be slowing down. Now, is that a result of the streaming wars or is it, something else? I don't know. I mean, there are some issues, like for instance, a lot of these some popular shows like Friends are going to be taken off or have been taken off of Netflix because all these content providers are coming out and they're trying to get their IP back. They're trying to get their shows back. So, we'll kind of see. Like I said, you kind of have to take these kind of things with a grain of salt because of who the source is. And NBC is obviously biased because, they're going to try to promote their thing, which is Peacock. But still, it is something that's a little bit troubling for Netflix.
I don't know what they're going to do, but I remember hearing that Friends, even though it's 20 years old, they had the most views or the most people watching last year. I mean, it was like crazy. So if they're going to take that down, then I don't know. I think the business people up there, they might have a strategy for this. They might know what they're doing. And when you own a business, debt is not necessarily a bad thing. Investors, well, that's something different, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, you have to kind of consider the source because, anything that comes out of NBC at this point regarding this topic is going to be biased. That they're going to try to paint themselves in a better light. But yeah, the thing for Netflix that's bad for them is that growth slowing because they've kind of been on this consistent track of growing at a pretty fast rate, and it appears that growth is slowing down. So I would say that probably the streaming wars is affecting that a little bit. That's where that slower growth is coming from.
Interesting. I don't have a lot of comments because we've kind of talked about a lot of this before, So, I mean, while you have to question the source, there's also probably a little germ of truth in there, little bit of truth. So, I mean, it makes sense. They're losing a ton of content. There's more competitors than they've ever had to face before. So, it's like I said before, to me, it's all about the quality of the content. They've got Sabrina season 3 is going to be hitting here in a day or two. I know a lot of people that are excited about that. I quite enjoyed the 2 seasons I saw of it. I'm not going to say Hail Satan, but anyhow. So they've got a lot of fun content. So we'll see well, it's so weird looking at myself. It's so friggin' weird.
Yeah.
So we'll see what's up next for Netflix. So I still haven't watched any of Lost in Space season 2. I've just been too busy, just too much going on.
Have you seen that, Heather? Lost in Space?
No.
Yeah, I haven't either. We covered a trailer for that in a previous episode, so that's something that Dave has recommended to me. I don't know, Dave. Maybe on a future show we'll get back to that and actually review some episodes or something like that. But I actually haven't seen it either. So
season 1, it was really great, but just season 2, I haven't had a chance to get to it, even though the trailers look really interesting. So
now I did have one more article. I thought this was interesting. This is from Yahoo. And this, let's see, when was this article dated? January 21st. So just yesterday. It says, in streaming wars, live sports could set NBC's Peacock apart. And I thought this was kind of neat since it's from Yahoo. So it might be a little bit more independent, if you will. But basically what this article is talking about is that NBC has a lot of sports content. And they're saying that there's no coincidence that the Peacock is basically going to be coming out when the Tokyo Olympics start, because they're going to be able to show coverage of the Tokyo Olympics on the Peacock. One of the interesting things, though, about this is they do talk about who their competition is in terms of like live sporting events. They talk about ESPN Plus, and I've had a really bad experience with ESPN Plus. On a previous show, I was talking about how my experience with it has been really bad. I think ESPN Plus is pretty much a big ripoff, and it's extremely misleading. It's extremely misleading. The reason being that the ESPN app is for all of the ESPN channels. And so there isn't a dedicated app for ESPN Plus. So when you first open up the app, it looks like you have all this amazing content to choose from as far as sporting events, live events, because they're basically showing you everything that's on all their channels. And ESPN has something like 5 channels. But it turns out that the ESPN Plus stuff is like very limited. And you have to actually like tab over the ESPN Plus tab. And then it's like basically like a lot of soccer. I think there's a decent amount of hockey. So if you're like into soccer or hockey, it's good. But I'm not really into either one of those things. The biggest thing that I got it for was for college football, and it turned out there was like no college football on it at all. So they talk about ESPN Plus in this article as a competitor. But the funny thing is, and we're going to be talking about Star Trek Picard. That's going to be our main topic. In this article, they don't talk about CBS All Access at all. And CBS All Access does have live sporting events. They do have NFL games and things like that. In fact, I think that's one of the big drivers for their subscription. And they don't mention it at all. And I found that really peculiar. I thought that was really weird that they didn't even mention them as a factor. And I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I don't know, because I've watched quite a bit of sports actually on CBS All Access. That's one of the upsides, of it, besides being able to see all the Star Trek content that I enjoy. Because a lot of their scripted shows, I don't know, a lot of them don't appeal to me. I've tried quite a few of them, but they just, I don't know, they don't work for me, it seems like. And along these lines, we're talking about, our winners and losers. And I had been talking about on Amazon Prime, I had been enjoying rewatching Justified. Well, just a couple days ago, Justified suddenly disappeared from not disappeared, but the little banner at the top that tells you, you can watch it as an Amazon Prime member disappeared. And I'd been working my way through the entire series, and I was like, what the heck's going on? And they wanted me to pay to watch the episodes. Well, for those of you who have Hulu, who've heard me talk about Justified, and you haven't had a chance to watch it, you can watch Justified on Hulu. So it's weird how this content is just kind of like musical chairs, just going all over the place. And I heard because of contracts, stuff's going to be leaving Disney Plus and showing up on other services. And then also additionally too, even like Friends and some of these other shows that these streaming services are touting as an important like cornerstone of their service a lot of this stuff is going to be music chairs going all over the place. So it's not going to be there the whole time. So it's really going to be on the streaming services to really make sure that their core content, that they're bringing people to their service with is really good, and it's going to stay on there. Because if you log in to watch something you're enjoying and all of a sudden you can't watch it because it's somewhere else, that's going to really alienate people.
Yeah, that's going to be happening for a while. Like we were just talking about, like with Friends and things like that. Yeah, there's going to be sort of like this musical chairs thing happening for quite a while as these new streaming services kind of establish themselves. That's going to happen a lot, and I think that is going to be frustrating for a lot of people.
Cool.